So today I am going to be reading some more poems. I have a nice stack. I've been thinking a lot about my relationship with reading, partially because I've been in a bit of a reading slump myself. This is for all number of diagnosable reasons. Sometimes the seasons change and a book doesn't really hit the same way. Sometimes I'm a bit too busy. And sometimes uh, as like nerdy as it sounds, quite literally a physical thing where I just don't have like my shoulders are kind of always hurting these days, my neck, my eyes in particular. So between those few systems, it's quite easy to get to a point where holding a book is a little bit too much. However, there are other times where my readerly stamina, my reading stamina is endless, and I could just sit there and read all day. I've always kind of been like this, though. Um, but nevertheless, I just wanted to uh, kind of settle into this session of poetry by, um, yeah, talking about what it means to share the act of reading with others and to um, be a reader in a community of readers. Um, there are all sorts of terms like avid readers, voracious readers, and um, I think it's odd to add the qualifier or superlative to the act of reading, especially in a cultural climate where if you read even a single book at all in a given year, you are probably among the like 30 to 25% of adults who do. Um, so I don't know what it means to be a reader these days, but I realized, and I've been thinking quite often about how I, so kind of strolling backwards, when I graduated from graduate school with my creative writing degree, I think there is a tremendous impetus and push to go into academia and to continue teaching because the act of teaching writing was for quite a long time one of the few and reliable paths forward to being funded for writing. And I realized that I don't think it's necessarily teaching writing that I'm interested in, but rather teaching reading. Not in the sense of teaching people how to read or trying to guide people to specific readings in its own right, but instead trying to uh, give instruction for how to engage more deeply with the world around you. I think poetry kind of equips you with those skills. And so I hope that whenever you join these readings, or if you are watching in the future or today, um, it is a worthwhile endeavor to remind you that your limited attention can be granted to whatever subject you wish. That all said, let's begin. The first work that I'm going to be reading from is Dark Times Filled with Light by Juan Gelman. This is translated by Hardy St. Martin. Gelman's a fascinatingly strong poet. I uh, have long admired. I first encountered him in this longer work I think it's also either a collected or a selected poems called Oxen Rage. And he's breathtaking in a lot of ways. Argentinian, but I won't meander too long on what he is and instead just read you his poems. Hymn of Victory in Certain Circumstances. At daybreak, now in full splendor, who but me, like gin destroying its beloved victims, is there to add light to the timid glow on the tables? Who but me, with scraps of paper-rich descriptions, kept to myself, and the word table, the lies, the yard lengths of lies to cover up the drunkard's elbows. The tailors are sad, but go on sewing and singing. Fat lies are in the air, brothers. Ugliness is beautiful. Running sores, lovable, and infamy like great dignity. Reptiles have grown on the bird, distracted singer, who stares wide-eyed at their horrible sight. Hurrah! No one is innocent after all. Ladies and gentlemen, let's drink a toast. Virgins don't verge, bishops don't bishop, functionaries don't function. Everything that festers ends up as tenderness. I look at my heart, swollen with losses, when there'd be so much room in it for beautiful adventures. Courage. The sadness a man and a woman can build up between them is enormous. Like those two birds pecking at each other on that branch, and enormous with the rains seen in its face, is the tree itself out there in the sun. Will it or won't it rain? Will those same little birds sing? Will the enormous sadness welling up, growing like a lake or a sea between a man and a woman go on and on? Will sadness fly from tree to tree, like footsteps all alone in a room, like coral through the air, like planks, like bridges lonely and no longer loved? A twig has dropped into the lake and sails out. The sadness a man and a woman can build up between them is enormous, like the little twig sailing across the lake, soaked to the bone with its own courage. And then it's so rare to find a poem that, maybe not rare, I guess, but I always love finding the titular lines in a poem. And so, especially in selected poems, I find that they leave those lines or find the title for the selected in various poems out there. And so, this is the titular inspiring poem. Things they don't know. Dark times, filled with light. The sun spreads sunlight over the city split by sudden sirens. The police hunt goes on. Night falls, and we'll make love under this roof, our eighth in 1 month. They know almost everything about us, except this plaster ceiling we make love under, and they also know nothing about the rundown pine furniture under the last ceiling, or about the window the night pounded on while you shone like the sun, or about the beds or the floor where we made love this month with faces around us like the sun spreading sunlight over the city. Um, Again, this is Juan Gelman. If you haven't read him, uh, just tremendous author. I'm still not quite out of translated poets in my little library to read for y'all, so I'm still sticking to this theme. Um, but thanks for hanging. Hi. What I love about Gelman in particular is that he kind of does this thing with poems where, like, the actual line breaks in the poems tend to be not adherent to the natural like cadence of the spoken word for it. And so it ends up being this really interesting discordant mixture of like attention to line versus attention to like um, verse logic, I guess is the word for it, if I can find one. Um, but it's very fun. I find that his work is very instructional in terms of even if you just kind of like scan the page and you don't really know how to make sense of, where an image is supposed to end or where an illusion is supposed to begin, um, speaking it aloud tends to really enunciate the intent of these poems, I think. Sticking with Spanish, but this time a Cuban poet, I'm reading Dulce Maria Loinas, translated by James O'Connor. This is another classic archipelago books collection, um, just by texture. Loinas's poems are very brief, so you can kind of see on the page, just extremely, um, tend to be quite digestible in like a single breath. And so this is typically how I try to indulge myself in them. Also, most of the poems are titled with simply Roman numerals, so uh, that is going to be the title scheme. 25. And I said to the pebbles, I know you are fallen stars. Hearing this, they lit up, and for a moment they shone. They were able to shine like stars. 30. Solitude. Ever dreamed of solitude? I love you so much. I sometimes fear God will punish me one day by filling my life with you. 34. I still don't know how it happened, but I have just fallen into a trap, and like a small rat, I find myself in a strange mesh of wires, an unforeseen cage of physical pain. I once felt like an eagle that could carry off the sun in its talons. My slender ankles once made me think I was a gazelle bounding into flight. But today I have discovered I am nothing but a small rat trapped in a shrewd device, a pitiful creature in the grip of an awesome, physical, mysterious power, and it will never let me go. But it won't kill me either. It simply looms between my body and the world where my body used to move. My new master even lets me deceive myself by letting me see right there where they've always been the sky, the sun, and the horizons that used to be mine. Horizons I now flee without fleeing and bite without biting while I wait to know what exactly they're going to do with me. Related but unrelated, I've never actually looked into why, but it's always been so bizarre to me that slender ankles has been like a thing in history that like signifies like attractiveness in people. Um, Mostly because I'm just like, who the fuck is looking at an ankle? Like I get like staring at the ground, if you're just having an off day and you don't want to pick your head up, or like, the tech hunch where you're just kind of stooped over all the time, but like an ankle? Anyway, I know like very, very historically, like fashionistically, ankles were like one of the only exposed like pieces of flesh for people to indulge in. And so seeing it was something of like, a perversion, kind of deal. But like an ankle. I was gonna try to count this in Roman numerals, but I can't count that high. Or I don't really know what C is in Roman numerals. I think it's 100, but CXIX. If man lost the birds of the sky, the poets would invent new birds. To imitate the dead song, they would take pearls from the fountain and blood from music. If man lost the flowers of the earth, the poets would return them to the clouds of every sunset in the dreams of every night. Brought back to life by the eternal song, man wouldn't be able to forget them, and then, for him, spring would last all year. If man lost the poets, he would continue to hold dominion over the world, but he would not hear, even if they sang every day, the songs of birds, nor would he truly understand, not even if he held it in his hands, the meaning of a rose. I think I'll finish Loina's selection there. Again, fantastic Cuban poet. If you haven't read her, just so breathtaking and generally like encouraging. Um, Written, I want to say she's mid 20th century. Yeah, these poems are mostly in the like 30s to 50s of the 1900s. Um, but I have to imagine that if she was alive today, uh, she'd still be saying, fuck the billionaires. They don't deserve poets. Yeah. Next up, I think I'm going to read from one of my like OG favorites, if you will, which is Francis Ponge, who is just a weird, a true weirdo of writerly attentions. I don't know if I would necessarily call him a poet, um, which perhaps is sacrilege because I think he is described as a poet in most of these cases. Um, this guy is from, or translated from the French by Beverly Bier-Brahik. Um, I don't speak French whatsoever, so I apologize if I've just butchered that pronunciation, but whatever. Um, but Francis Ponge, I first read him in a collection called The Door, where he basically did a series of uh, I don't know, maybe 70, 80, like usually like page and a half, page long, like journal excerpts, where he just wrote effectively like diary odes to a door. Um, or like he's done it in an entire collection to a table, like genuinely just so profoundly like willing to sit there and give attention to utterly inanimate. Uh-oh, did I stop? Hello? Okay, that was weird. Apologies if that just like broke on you. Um, my like camera just turned off randomly. God, I hate tech. I hate that like this is an affliction that we have to do. I mean, I love being able to just like do this and just say I'm gonna read some poems for people and then just go online and do it. Um, Although I do think that if I had like any amount of audacity, it could be just as nice to just be willing to try and do this anywhere in person. But it does also seem significantly more invasive to like walk into like a coffee shop and be like, "Hey, you shits, you're sipping your coffee, taking a break from your day. Listen to some poems too while you're at it." Um, Yeah, I don't know what level of audacity I'm allowed as a white man passing individual. Nevertheless, I was just riffing on Francis Ponge. Um, this is his book, Unfinished Ode to Mud, and I will read you a few excerpts from it. Speech stifled under the roses. One rose is already too much, like a stack of plates in front of one diner. It's too much to call a girl rose, for it means wanting her forever naked or in a ball gown when, fragrant from dancing, radiant, flushed, dewy, she blushes, sparkling, cheeks aflame under the crystal of the chandeliers, like a piece of toast popping ever golden from the toaster. The green leaf, the green stem, with its toffee flecks and the thorns, good God, not the least like toffee, of the rose are essential to its character. There's a way to force roses that resembles what one does when, to speed things up, one puts steel spurs on a fighting cock. Oh, infatuation of long-limbed helicoidal petole! The peacock tail is a flower too, vulva of the calyx, pruritus or itch, tickle it, it blooms, puffs up, cracks open. They fluff up their skirts, their petticoats, their knickers, flesh and dress together, kneaded with satin, the stuff of flowers, each is dress and thigh, breast and bodice too, one can pinch between two fingers at last and handle accordingly. Take a sniff, push it off, leave it, forget it, and pick it up again, arrange, spread, look, and turn it black and blue if need be, with a single terrific bruise from which it won't recover, with an acrid quality which brings about a sort of return to the leaf. What love for every girl takes a few months at least to accomplish. In bloom at last, calmed their fits of passive aggressivity, this bush, spoiling for a fight, feathers fluffed, will soon strew a few flowers, a nuanced superposition of saucers, tender shields pressed around a little heap of finely ground dust, more precious than gold. Lastly, roses are like things in the oven. The overhead flame sucks them up, aspirates the thing which rises towards it. Imagine the souffle wants to stick to it, but can go no further than a certain spot, then parts its lips and sends it its gaseous parts, which crackle up. In this way, the thing in the oven browns and blackens, then smokes and turns to flame. What takes place is a kind of opening in the oven, and speech is but this is also why plants must be watered, for it's their watery elements which, bribed by fire, in their elevation carry along with them all the other parts of plants. Momentously, flowers uncork, once and for all, their flakens. They'll do anything to attract attention. Blessed with a touching infirmity, paralysis of the lower limbs, they flutter their perfumed handkerchiefs. For them, truly, for each flower, all the rest of the world is about to go off on a trip. So I hope it's pretty clear that when he's writing about little things, he's really just a horny dude thinking about eating pussy. Yeah, you absolutely should. That would be so fun. I feel like downtown could use people just screaming poems at their faces, like they're so miserably like indulgent on their walks to and fro. Um, but yeah, I love Punch. I mean that particular poem is probably his most overt about just being horny about everything and everything becoming something of an allusion to cunnilingus, but um, nevertheless, he kind of does it with everything. Like if he does a fixation or a study on an object, it usually devolves into some like primordial horniness that's swelling within him. Um, I also just so jazzed that a dude from like the early 20th century is down to just loudly proclaim, like, hey, like this door, this crack in a wood, this flower just makes me hornier. Perhaps that is not the poem to put on a sidewalk speaker piping out, but we'll see. Um, Next up, I wanted to read Lee Se-young. This is titled Patterns, and it's translated by Brother Anthony of Taizé and Yu We Suck. Um, this is a Green Integer book, which, if you're unfamiliar with Green Integer Press, they do a lot of really fantastic translations, and I think they're based out of LA. Um, but they're just such like an analog, like culture uh, publisher that I find unless you're really looking for them, it's difficult to become aware of their existence. But they have so many fantastic anthologies and collections of poets that otherwise would go unpublished. So here are a few poems by Lee Se-young, a Korean poet. New Dawn. Waking and rising in the middle of the night, sometimes I suddenly turn into a docile cow. This is the dearest time to me. With broad ears dangling, this is the time when I am born as a deeper I. I hear the crack of a stone smashing against the faraway foundation of the universe. From this time on, the fragrant earth's dawn opens nearby. From this time on, too, the yearned for waves grid the distant coastline with a verdant belt. I too wish I could get reborn as a cow. Um, a dried fish. There's been something wrong with you lately. What on earth have you done with your body? This morning you brazenly failed to turn up in time for a meeting, didn't even have your glasses on. What? We should live with one side of our souls totally emptied out? That's the only way we can hear the birds singing and the angry voice of last night's spirits? Why indeed? Just so. Maybe you're right. But what are you up to now? Where's your body? That once so nimble, dried up soul. Before your poem. If there are works of literature ignorant of solitude, they're sure to be frauds. A storm has swept the garden all night long, and now one tree, its roots exposed white in the breeze, is risking its whole being, risking it with all its might. He, he had so many seed-sized promises he just had to keep. He invariably performed them all sincerely. He had so many little jobs he just had to perform. He devoted himself to them wholeheartedly. He had so many relatives and dependents he just had to support. For them, he gladly became a willing mule, bringing them loads of food and clothing. But was that his life? Once, in his youth, he longed to unbutton his school uniform, dash into the throng demonstrating in the street, and shout loudly. But he hesitated because he had promised his mother. Later, grown old, he longed to quit working and go walking to his heart's content along woodland paths back home. But never did it. on account of having to get his boss's permission. Now, an old age pensioner, he sits on a bench in the park and groans. Was that my life? In the style of Kim Soo-young. Let's read poems. Let's read diligently. Before your soul grows tarnished, let's write poems, too. Let's write diligently. As a weighty work to stop the dry soul being blown away by the wind, the path of poetry's a path taken for the first time, taking a path for the very first time, a path no one ever took before. Again, this is Lee Si Young, translated by Brother Anthony Apaise and Yu Huisa. I love I love poets like that, especially. I mean, I feel like normally you get like the portrait author portraits when they're just an absolute baddie, like it's just like slut me out kind of deal. But I love the unassuming like dude face who's just writing the most like, man, working sucks. Man, why did I waste my life doing dumb shit when I could have been reading more poems? Um, it's just such a vibe. I love it so much. Um, not that I love that someone feels like they wasted their life. Rather, I love the message and the theme of writing about needing more people to realize that they've they're wasting their time not reading poems. Um, yeah, but cool, dude. Love that collection. I'm just a softy for poets who write very unabashedly about how much they love poetry or how much they credit it with like improving their lives. Continuing in an Asian area, we're going to read Tuishi. I apologize. Again, I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. Like I don't pronounce I'll practice pronunciation of individuals when I'm like in public trying to do this, but I realize that after selecting a work on here and reading this person's name in my head, I have never once actually tried pronouncing their name out loud. So I apologize in advance. Um, Vietnamese poet, though, translated by Win Ba Chung and Martha Collins. This is by a smaller press or a smaller like sub press of milkweed called Seed Books or Seed Bank Books, um, who do really cool work. Dream of a long life. Worn stones reflect the setting sun. Crying waters rise over life's games. 1,000 years echo a great longing. Winds bring words to a lonely, distant journey. As cinnabar crumbles, the dream crumbles too. On the life-death road, the peach tree is stripped bare. The herder in the field is still faithful. A storm crane, dried up on the temple roof. Sitting in the graveyard. Since the days of Genesis, fires have gone out. A human life is racked by ashes and dust. For a long time, I've been sitting in a graveyard like white silk. Cold moonlight covers the forest. As chill night winds blow in, demons tremble, quivering, kissing heaps of thin bones. They cry, ask why their bodies haven't crumbled so their spirits can disappear in wisps of flame. When the mind has not yet turned to dead wood, the black earth still shines with bright blue blood. 2. I have become a wanderer from chaos. Autumn, my hair, I hang up a soft shoe. I sit and count my dreams passing through leaves. On the grassy bank, I let my eyelids fall because I idled for 10 long years in dreams. I embrace an old love, forgetting its twilight. One morning, I hear the changed calls of birds. You can see me pushing Devas' shadows away. The crimson earth makes people's hearts eager. Rocks not yet worn smooth make hearts lonesome because of the city, the drizzle and strange sun. For 10 years I forget the dream of waiting. 3. In the footprints of exile, I hold in my feelings, in the midst of infinity, what hope of sorrow, joy. On strange wharves, who knows if wandering's over, so I can return to drink the autumn winds, like a seagull's wings over a rough sea, drifting like wings from thousands of years ago, recalling ancient people in moon hidden places and a time of love sent to the boundless sky. Late afternoon, vast rapids, rising stones, the sorrows of this world will fade away. What magic is behind so much destruction? And yet a rose just bloomed beside the stream. Everywhere is the home of the pure land, a carefree life, no obstacles at all, no complications, no need for emancipation, a life of ease like water beneath a bridge. By the time I learned the sadness of life and death and left home to find some space for myself, my mother had stopped crying for my father. She cried instead for me, my wandering life. I miss my mother once, 1,000 times. I love my sister. I know of nothing better. I bathe in the moon's stream by a strange hill on an autumn evening. An island shines bright green. 4. A life, a short stretch of rough road. I listen all night long to a waterfall. I step quickly over a long lost river, waiting for rain to drizzle on butterfly wings. One morning, my eyes flood with the past. The dark road connects to my former lives. I stand forever in an endless forest stream, a fleeting dream of red blood at dusk. This collection is again called Dreaming the Mountain. And yeah, I'm not really knowing if I have as concrete of a theme for these poems so far. I think a lot of the poems that I've kind of unconsciously selected for today have tended to be works that are fantasizing about um, some um, spiritual or emotional fulfillment granted outside of the doldrums of life. Um, I don't know. I love poets who dream for not really anything grandiose except for the grand act of happiness. This will be the last poet who I read from, and then I'm going to call it just because I don't want to read more. This is titled The Book of Things, which the funniest part of that to me is that this is like the third collection of poetry I own titled The Book of Things. And each of the collections is actually by a different author. And in fact, like from entirely different countries. Like I think there's one American, one Turkish, and then this guy, um, Aleš Steger, who is Slovenian. Um, Unironically, I think all three of the Book of Things that I own are pretty good. So perhaps people are onto it. Maybe that title is just one of those things that like folks just know how to write bangers when they have to write that book. Stomach. What does the clerk of the stomach say? That yesterday he was seen crossing the street, that he didn't pay the toothpick at the restaurant, that he is flying too high and sooner or later it will befall him. What do the veal steak and two flasks of Tyrann's say? That the light suddenly ran out, that it grew tight and stuffy, though you still didn't leave, that it is sad when you drop so low. What does the thigh, which grazes behind the cow's head, say? That his gross worth grows with every morsel, that he will enter the souls of 15 wedding guests and two dogs simultaneously, that it isn't cold as long as there's enough grass and roads on the horizon. And what does this gurgle, this drooling stutter whisper to you? That it isn't cold as long as there's enough meat and potatoes, that it is sad when you drop so low, that all creatures which fly sooner or later will fall. Chair. The rings in it make time look aside. It recalls you when you were still a primate, on all fours, and current sapiens, drunk, tormented, desperate, on all fours, a human with the perspective of floors, of you. It wears anal histories. The leather skirt of a Roman centurion has warmed it, and a few scraps on the naked buttocks of a serf, the stiff flaxen pants of senior storm leader, and the prancing edge of sticky miniskirts. It knows as many stories as backsides, but even the fronts got lost, drifted away in rough waters. So be grateful that it has accepted you as you are, that it bears you. Now, when at last all is behind you, you can entrust it with your weight. Lean ahead, slightly confused from the noises of centuries. You snore. Candle. When someone dies, it is not day, not night, and no one present, not here nor there, a small flicker above the gas stove, unimportant, and it does not live and did not die. What you conceal with the palm, it does not ask, does not give answers. It is not on the side of good, it is not on the side of evil. It does not know lies, not truth, not sense or nonsense. It is not the future and not the past. It is and at the same time is not. Is not that it is or was not you. It will not be by itself or something else. Not air nor fire, not light nor flame, not abyss, not hope, not yes, not no. When someone dies, someone has not died yet. He climbed down the wick inside himself. You reach behind and extinguish him. So I think I will end on that poem. Um, yeah, I don't have like strong like apps or like summaries or whatever. I'm just sometimes it's nice just to read some poems and not work for an hour, and it's kind of what I'm doing here. Um, Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Uh, I'm again gonna keep on trying to do this probably once a week for however long I can, or as long as I really feel like it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy, and uh, love you. Stay cute. Bye bye. Read some poetry.